Ray Kowalski pulled into the I-80 rest stop at mile marker 421 just after midnight on August 14, 1991, because his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The hum had started 20 miles back, low mechanical, like a turbine winding down inside his skull. He'd driven 18-wheelers for 11 years and knew every rattle his rig could make. This wasn't one of them. He killed the engine. The hum stopped. Ray sat in the cab for 4 minutes, watching moths batter the sodium lights. His logbook said he'd left the Davenport depot at 6:47 p.m., westbound for Cheyenne with a load of industrial lathes. The math worked. The route worked. But when he climbed down to check the trailer, he found the seals still intact, and a thin layer of dust on the mud flaps that hadn't been there when he'd pre-tripped the truck 7 hours earlier. He radioed dispatch at 12:19 a.m. The recording still exists in a storage unit outside Des Moines, archived by a company that folded in 1996. Ray's voice is steady, almost apologetic. He reports the hum, mentions a weird gap in his memory between the last truck stop and here, and asks if anyone else on the channel has experienced something similar. Dispatch logs the call, tells him to get some sleep, and clears him to resume at 0600 hours. Ray never resumed. The next verifiable record of his truck appears 340 miles east at the Breezewood Toll Plaza in Pennsylvania, where an automatic camera captured his license plate at 2:17 a.m. same night, 1 hour and 58 minutes after his rest stop radio call. His rig passed through the EZ Pass lane. The toll system recorded the transaction. No alarm was triggered. It should have been impossible. At 65 miles per hour, sustained and legal, the drive from mile marker 421 in Iowa to Breezewood would take just over 5 hours. Ray's truck crossed that distance in less than 2. His logbook, recovered 3 days later in the cab, showed continuous westbound travel with no gaps, no backtracking, and a fuel log that matched a Cheyenne-bound route. The odometer reading aligned with a straight shot to Wyoming. But the toll receipt didn't lie. Pennsylvania State Police contacted Ray's dispatcher on August 17th after the truck was found idling in a rest area outside Harrisburg, keys in the ignition, cab empty. A thermos of coffee sat in the cup holder, still warm. Ray's duffel bag was open on the passenger seat. Inside 3 changes of clothes, a portable CB radio, a Thomas guide for the Western states, and a folded toll receipt, timestamped 2 hours 17 minutes and 3 seconds on August 14, 91, Plaza code BRZ6. No note, no signs of struggle, no Ray. The investigation moved slowly. The truck was impounded, the cargo was offloaded and inventoried. Every lathe accounted for, seals unbroken. Dispatch records were subpoenaed. The audio of Ray's midnight call was reviewed by 3 separate analysts, all of whom noted the same thing: no background noise consistent with an active truck stop, no idling engines, no air brakes, just Ray's voice and a faint rhythmic static that didn't match any known interference pattern. 14 years later, a toll booth operator named Sandra Purcell was clearing a paper jam in Lane 4 at the Breezewood Plaza when she found a second receipt wedged deep in the machine's roller assembly. Same truck, same date. But this one was time-stamped 11:43 p.m. on August 13, 1991, 34 minutes before Ray's radio call from Iowa, and 5 hours before the automated camera captured his plate. The receipt was crumpled, soft from years of humidity. Sandra smoothed it flat and saw the plaza code BRZ6, same lane, same transaction ID prefix. The only difference was the timestamp. She called her supervisor. He called the state police. The original case file was pulled from archives, and a retired investigator named Tom Ellison agreed to review the material. Ellison had worked the 1991 disappearance and remembered the toll receipt because it had never made sense. Now there were two. Ellison requested maintenance logs for the toll plaza. The record showed Lane 4 had experienced a software glitch on the night of August 13, 1991, a clock error that caused the system to issue duplicate timestamps for a 40-minute window between 11:30 p.m. and 12:10 a.m. The glitch was noted, corrected, and filed. No further action was taken because the error affected only internal logs, not customer charges. But the 2:17 a.m. receipt had been issued after the glitch was corrected. Ellison drove to the plaza and examined Lane 4 in person. The booth had been rebuilt twice since 1991, but the original transaction database was still accessible through the state's central archive. He ran both receipt numbers. The system returned two entries for the same vehicle, one at 11:43 p.m., flagged as a glitch duplicate, and one at 2:17 a.m., flagged as valid. He pulled the camera footage from August 14, 1991. The archive tape was grainy, time-stamped in white block numerals at the bottom of the frame. At 2 hours 17 minutes and 6 seconds, Ray's truck entered Lane 4, slowed, and passed through. The camera captured the plate, the DOT number on the cab, and a brief reflection of the driver's side window. Ellison froze the frame. The cab was empty. He advanced the footage frame by frame. The truck moved through the lane smoothly, as if guided. No driver visible in any frame. The toll arm lifted. The truck continued east. Ellison contacted the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission and requested a review of the plaza's automated systems. Engineers found no evidence of tampering, no mechanical override, no explanation for how a truck could pass through a staffed toll lane without triggering an alarm. The transaction was valid. The truck had been there, but no one had been driving it. Ray's family was contacted in 2005. His sister Joan still lived in the same house in Cedar Rapids, where Ray had grown up. She told Ellison that Ray had called her 2 days before his final haul, August 12, 1991, and mentioned feeling off after a run through Pennsylvania the week prior. He described the same hum, the same strange gap in his route log, and a persistent sense that he'd lost time somewhere between Breezewood and the Ohio border. Joan had dismissed it as fatigue. Long-haul drivers pushed themselves too hard. Ray had laughed it off, said he'd take a few days after the Cheyenne run, maybe visit her in September. He never called again. Ellison spent 6 months tracking down every truck stop, way station and fuel station along Ray's documented route. He found security footage from a pilot station in North Platte, Nebraska, dated August 14, 1991, showing Ray's truck refueling at 9:22 a.m., 8 hours after the Breezewood toll receipt. The attendant remembered Ray because he'd paid in cash and asked if the clocks were running fast. They weren't. The fuel log in Ray's recovered logbook matched the North Platte stop. The odometer matched a westbound route. Everything pointed to Ray driving toward Cheyenne, exactly as planned, except for the toll receipt that said he'd been 340 miles east, in Pennsylvania, in the middle of the night. Ellison requested a geological survey of the I-80 corridor between Iowa and Pennsylvania. He wanted to know if there were any seismic anomalies, electromagnetic fields, or underground structures that might explain a navigation error or instrument malfunction. The survey returned nothing unusual. I-80 ran through stable terrain, no fault lines, no military installations, no recorded magnetic deviations. He interviewed 12 long-haul drivers who had worked the same route in 1991. 3 of them remembered the rest stop at mile marker 421. One recalled seeing a truck idling there around midnight on August 14th, but couldn't confirm the driver. Another mentioned a weird feeling passing through that stretch of Iowa, described it as a pressure change, like driving into a storm that never arrived. None of them had experienced a 6-hour gap. In 2006, Ellison traveled to the rest stop at mile marker 421. The facility had been renovated in 1998, but the layout was unchanged. He walked the parking lot at night, stood where Ray's truck would have been, and listened. No hum, no pressure, just whine through the corn and the occasional hiss of air brakes from passing semis. He filed his supplemental report in March 2007. The conclusion was careful, clinical. Subject's whereabouts remain unknown. Evidence suggests a temporal or navigational anomaly inconsistent with known physical systems. No fraud detected. No mechanical failure detected. Case remains open. Ray's truck was sold at auction in 2008. The odometer read 287,643 miles. The maintenance records were clean. The new owner drove it for 6 years without incident, then sold it to a fleet in Oklahoma. It's still on the road. Joan Kowalski died in 2019. In her will, she left a box of Ray's belongings to a nephew who'd never met him. Inside, a CB radio, a faded Thomas guide, and 2 toll receipts, stapled together. The nephew posted photos of the receipts on a trucking history forum in 2021. A retired turnpike engineer saw the timestamps and ran the numbers. 340 miles in 118 minutes, required an average speed of 172.88 miles per hour. Ray's rig had a governed top speed of 74. The hum hasn't been reported since. The question no one answered: if Ray was driving west when the toll camera caught his truck moving east, where was the version of him that made the call from Iowa? And what was he running from that made him willing to leave the engine on and the keys in the seat?